Welcome back to the shop. It's a brilliant day here today. Lots of sun. It's got hot. Anyway, today what I want to do is I want to explain the situation with wiring here. How I made that Di2 wire go away. I had promised to do that and failed to follow up, and one of the viewers wrote me a comment and said, did I ever figure it out? So I'm gonna, rather than explain it to him in a reply, I'm just gonna do a short video, hopefully it's short, to explain how I solved that problem there. Initially, when I was thinking about how I'm going to run the wire, I wanted to copy what GPLama had done in a video he posted. I don't know, it's been a year ago, maybe 6 months ago. He did this trick on his Giant TCR. He's got disc brakes, so instead of a top tube brake cable port, he's got a down tube port, which is kind of more convenient because you're going to put the junction B down in here, and then you're going to run a lead up here to connect the cockpit to the junction B and the battery. So that down tube port was easy. But in his video, you don't really see what he did with the grommet, but it went right in, and I figured, there you go, that's the solution to my problem. The thing is, this top tube port, I need to get it to the down tube. So one of the ideas I had was to run it back here and maybe drop it down the seat post somehow, drill a hole in the post, something. I didn't want to do that. But then it occurred to me, well, there's plenty of room in the head tube. This steerer is only 1 inch diameter. So you got all this room back here. And you got a big opening to the down tube and a big opening at the top of the head tube for the top tube. So why not run the Di2 wire in here, do a U-turn back to the head tube, drop it down, connect it to the wire coming up from junction B, and there you go. Your cockpit's connected to the frame, you got power to the shifters. It's a circuit. However, when I went to try and fit the brake cable into this grommet, I put the brake cable in, and it was immediately clear that there's no room. There's no room once the brake cable's in there for the Di2 wire. That brake cable basically, you know, you can see the Di2 wire, but it's actually, I'll show you a demonstration. I had to figure out how to get the Di2 wire in there, because in any event, when I put the brake cable in the grommet, it's a stop here, so the brake cable goes in, fits in tightly, and then there's tension on the cable, obviously. So I had to stop and think about that. And basically overnight the idea came to me, well, let me just take a look at the grommet. Maybe I can cut a slot in the grommet or something like that. So I'll show you what I did. Yoeleo packs about 3 extra of these plastic grommets. And if you look at it close, you'll see that what holds it in place, there's a little tab. When you put the grommet in the frame, this little piece here compresses in a little bit. It snaps into the opening in any event. So it snaps in right there, holds it tight in the opening. So you can see when the brake cable goes in, it fills this opening completely. Now I thought, okay, maybe I'll cut a slot right here. Just cut a slot, run the cable in there. But then that, of course, maybe gives an opportunity for some moisture or water to get back in there when you wash your bike or in the rain. In any event, the fix is not all that hard. So the brake cable housing goes in and stops. Now this is a cable routing tool. It's not a Di2 wire, but it's basically the same size, and it has this end on it that mimics the size of the connector on the Di2 cable. So this cable is coming down from the handlebars out the same exit port on the handlebars as the brake cable and brake cable housing. And so this runs in the same arc from the handlebars down to the frame as the brake cable housing. So the idea is to put these two, this wire and the cable housing together, and then you can just put a piece of shrink fit tube over it, and essentially this disappears. You can't make the brake cable go away. It's a rim brake frame. So there's no internal cable routing on the R11 for running the cables down the stem into the head tube. But there's obviously room in the head tube, so you just have to get to the head tube by going into this hole, doing a U-turn back to the head tube, dropping the cable down. It's only a matter of about an inch between the opening of the top tube into the head tube and the opening of the down tube into the head tube, and then you just send it down the down tube. So I'll talk more about my Di2 connections, but this is a demonstration of how this thing worked. All I did was I opened up this tab and slid the Di2 cable down into that opening. Now there's plenty of room in there. It doesn't bind the cable at all, and this cable it's more like a hard wire. It's magnetic. It's not flexible like the Di2 wire is. But you can see it doesn't catch, and even when you make that U-turn and then down the head tube and then down the down tube, the Di2 wire flexes in there. There's plenty of room for that Di2 wire, and then you've got the brake cable housing going in like that. So I've got the Di2 wire mated to the cable housing all the way back up to the handlebar exit port, and I just spot tied it together with a piece of electrical tape in a couple places. So that was the trick. Not a trick at all. I'm surprised it didn't occur to me at the time, but it did not. It takes me a while to figure things out. But that's the fix. I mean, it simply goes through this opening in this elbow, when this is the piece that snaps into place and keeps the grommet from shaking out. So I hope that's pretty clear. Now, what did I do for once I got the wire to there and knew it would work? I've got a wire coming up from the down tube that is connected to junction B down in the down tube, just toward the handlebars from the bottom bracket frame, in the bottom bracket in the frame. So the junction B is down there. There's two connections on the rear of the junction B. One goes to the rear derailleur, one goes to the front derailleur. Then there's two ports on the front of the junction B. One goes back up the seat post to the battery, and the other goes up the down tube. Now originally when I just kind of roughly set up the wiring, I did all the bottom bracket stuff, got the bottom bracket in. I just had that wire from the junction B hanging out this alternate junction A location, and I taped it to the frame so it wouldn't slide back in there. So once I figured this out, basically I have to get the wire in here, back, down, and down, connected to the wire that I had temporarily coming out this port. So that was no big deal. What I did is there's plenty of extra wire on this one going down to junction B. So I just used the magnetic cable routing tool, and I brought that wire up and out here. Then I put an inline connection. I'm sorry, I'm not showing that. I brought that wire from junction B up here and then out here. So now the junction B wire is hanging out. The wire from the handlebar, the cockpit, is here. I just put an inline connector to connect the two wires together. And then I put it back in the frame. The handlebar and the fork wasn't in there, so this is wide open. And I just took a little tool, something like this, and I reached down in there and snagged the cable and brought it up through the opening of the head tube. And now I have the connector with the two wires connected here. Put a little piece of foam and some tape on it, and a couple zip ties on the cable. And I wanted to get it back in here, so what I did, there's a lot of extra cable on this Di2 wire coming from the cockpit. So basically I just stuffed the extra cable or wire from the cockpit this way, and the foam padded connector is sitting right about here in the top tube. So this wire from junction B is coming up here and it's plugged into the back. This wire is plugged into the front of that foam piece, and it's not going anywhere. Any extra wire from the cockpit, I just shoved it this way. And then there's extra wire here. So looking down the down tube, you can see the wire running on the inside of, looking down the head tube, you can see the Di2 wire running on the inside of the head tube and down here. I just wanted to make sure that that wire hugged the back side of the head tube so it doesn't ever get in the way of the steering tube. And it did. All I had to do was shove a little of the extra wire with a zip tie on it down here, and it wouldn't come back up. So that's how I got it connected. And it's kind of one of those little victories that you come upon when you're working on a project that makes it kind of satisfying, doesn't it? Anyway, so before all of this got connected, obviously, I didn't have the brake cable or the housing in here. All I had was these two coming down together, and I put the grommet loosely over the Di2 wire. But before I did that, I slid a piece of heat shrink tubing over the two ends, brought it up here, and then I did the wire connections, and you can see it's a pretty clean finish. Now the thing was, had I not done this, where would that Di2 wire go that connects the cockpit? Well, it would come down here. I could still make it disappear, bind it to this cable until it gets here, and then it has to come down and go in here. Now, I never liked that idea. I said, why? That just looks kind of stupid. But that was apparently how Yoeleo had figured this out. And I can't see any other solution other than the GPLama trick done on the top tube. So that was the solution. I hope that helps. And I'm gonna do another short video that kind of goes over the build and summarizes everything I did, because it's finished now. It looks damn good. The only thing I have left to deal with is I have a new saddlebag coming that I'm going to put the minimal amount of tools and a spare tubular tire in it. And it's called a Design Road Caddy. It's quite compact. It's rectangular, flat, and fits right underneath here. But it's only big enough to carry, like if you have clinchers, you'd carry a spare tube, a CO2 cartridge, a nozzle, maybe a multi-tool. So that's the only thing remaining to go on the bike. All the adjustments have been made on the derailleurs. It works like a charm. Now the other thing I did, I'll talk about that since I'm doing this, is when I initially put Hambini's bottom bracket in here, the frame opening was undersized and slightly oval, but the bottom bracket went in quite simply on the drive side. It's a one-piece bottom bracket, so you push it from the drive side all the way through. But it would not fit in all the way on the non-drive side. And in the process of trying to fit it, the little tool that Hambini sends with his bottom bracket, there's a little cup on this end, and you press from this end, and that cup kept sliding off here. I wore some paint off my frame and it didn't look good. So I had the idea to take these little frame protective stickers, and I very carefully cut 2 pieces of stickers and mated them. You can't really tell even. And it almost looks like it was kind of meant to be. Maybe that's a half-assed solution, but I didn't feel like at the time I wanted to take this to a body shop and have it painted. And I've communicated with Yoeleo a couple times and asked him to send me the paint code for this paint, because it's a custom paint I ordered. And I haven't heard back from him. I don't know why. So I'll deal with that when I do a review of the bike and post it. But anyway, that's maybe not even a permanent solution. All those stickers are pretty durable. They hang on there and they're waterproof, so it's kind of covering up the little bit of paint chipping I caused. And I don't mind the look of that at all. Anyway, more to come. Thanks for watching.